From KPCC, Southern California Public Radio's Crawford Family Forum, this is Planetary Radio Live. And next, People, Science, Tomorrow. Here is your host, the Planetary Society's Matt Kaplan.
Welcome to Public Radio's travel show that takes you to the final frontier. We're back with PlanRad Live in front of another full house here in Pasadena, not far from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the robotic space exploration capital of the world, and the birthplace of every rover that has gone to Mars. We have gathered to celebrate the spirit of exploration, the unforeseen opportunities that always result from exploring, and the curiosity that drives this basic human need. That is Hedgehog Swing, and you'll hear more from them as we continue on through the show this evening. You'll hear even sooner from one of our special guests. He's already on the Skype line waiting for us to introduce him. That's Principal Investigator for the Mars Exploration Rovers, Steve Squires. That's coming up in just a few moments. But right now, I want to welcome the CEO of the Planetary Society, my boss and friend, Bill Nye The Science Guy.
Thank you, Matt. It's so good to be here, so good to see all these planetary enthusiasts here in the room, and I hope there are millions listening online as we celebrate 10 years of exploring Mars with these extraordinary two rovers that were launched back in 2004, and they were supposed to run for 3 Martian months, and one went 6 years, the other's gone 10 years. Imagine buying a car with a 3-year warranty. This would be equivalent to buying a car with a 3-year warranty and driving it for 120 years. That is extraordinary. That is worth celebrating. So I say all the time, the planetary science is, first of all, NASA is the best brand the United States has. And planetary science is right now what NASA does best. So this is really, it's a great thing to be celebrating.
I'll say. Bill is going to be here for the duration this evening. Other guests will be coming and going. We are soon going to welcome John Grotzinger, Project Scientist for Curiosity, the Mars Science Laboratory, Rob Manning, former Chief Engineer for Curiosity, and the man who I believe knows more about safely putting things on the surface of Mars than pretty much anybody, and Jim Bell, camera lead for Spirit and Opportunity, the Mars Exploration Rovers. And later, I'll be joined, thank you, on his behalf. Later, I'll be joined by my colleague Bruce Betts, planetary scientist, and the Planetary Society's Director of Projects for our regular What's Up segment. First, though, please give a warm welcome to the Planetary Society's Senior Editor and Planetary Evangelist, Emily Lakdawalla. Good to see you again, Emily.
Thank you, Matt.
I am looking forward to, as is everybody else here, looking at some of your hand-picked images. And you take us through those.
Sure. Well, Matt always asks me to give him my favorite images, and I always tell them that I do not have favorites.
There are no favorites. I found a different way to say it tonight.
You did.
Although this is a radio show.
I do get to pick a theme, though. I didn't have a good answer.
But we're on video now.
And I decided that I wanted to talk about how the images were used not just as snapshots of pretty places, because that's how we tend to use them, but as images that help us document the kinds of awesome science that these rovers are doing. And I want to begin by acknowledging the rover that literally broke the path for the future rovers that came after it. And that's, that's the laser pointer. There we go. So this is the Pathfinder lander, which landed on Mars in 1997 and brought with it this little experimental thing that weighed only 20 pounds, 11 kilograms. And it was the Sojourner rover, a much smaller rover, much less capable than the ones we have now. But Sojourner demonstrated to us the power of carrying a science platform, carrying a science package on a mobile platform and being able to drive across the surface of Mars. This is an unusual view from the Pathfinder lander. Pathfinder was a lander. It didn't move, but it did have this rover that could move within the landscape. And so if we zoom into this view, what you'll see is a whole bunch of little rovers. Now, it didn't actually carry this many rovers. This is just the position that the rover took in very many different sols over the course of the 83 sol mission, all the different rocks and spots that Sojourner managed to explore during the mission. You can see that Sojourner scuffed soil and crawled on rocks and even started wandering off into the distance toward the end there. And in fact, we've seen Sojourner from space and seen the little rover down a little bit to the south of the Pathfinder lander. And Sojourner really demonstrated to us the power of roving Mars to put science instruments right up against rocks. Okay, so fast forward about a decade, and we get to Spirit's landing on Mars. And the moment that Spirit landed was absolutely awesome, but I have to say there's something slightly disappointing about that first image, because, you know, it doesn't look a whole lot different from the Pathfinder landing site, except that it's even flatter, which is not what geologists want. Geologists like mountains and things you can climb and go see the rocks. So that was a little sad, but it was awesome that we were on Mars, but still, it was just a flat landscape with some rocks on it. And then Opportunity landed, and the moment that we got this first picture from Opportunity and we saw the wall of this crater with bedrock cropping out of that wall, all of the geologists in the room absolutely screamed. They were so excited that we finally had, there were geologists jumping up and down and running around in circles. They were so excited to see this in-place bedrock that we could read to tell the story of Mars. And
You still are excited.
I still am excited. I don't think I will never be not excited about this first picture that we got from Opportunity. And if you look down at the right side of that outcrop, this is what it looked like when Opportunity, being a rover, managed to drive up to it and see it. There were thin layers. Those layers told us about water and wind shaping the surface of Mars. You look at it even closer and you see these little blueberries embedded in the rocks, and those told us about water running through these rocks and dissolving some elements and concentrating them elsewhere. And we had this lengthy history of water on Mars that Opportunity told us all about. Well, not to be outdone, Spirit did finally manage to get to some watery story rocks on Mars, but it took a little while. First they said, well, maybe if we drive to a crater like the one that Opportunity's in, we'll be able to find some nice bedrock that we can explore. And they did that. The crater was named Bonneville, and oh my God, was Bonneville disappointing, because it was just a dust-filled hole in the ground with no bedrock as far as the eye could see. I think Rob Manning is pointing out that you can see actually the broken back shell, is that the heat shield? The heat shield is up on the left side of this image. But there wasn't any bedrock, and that was sad. So they looked off into the distance and they said, those hills, we got to start climbing mountains. It was going to take a long time. It was going to be a long drive. The rover only had a 3-month warranty, and it was going to be a lot longer than 3 months to get there. It turned out to be 157 sols and 3 kilometers of driving. But they finally got to those mountains, and the moment they reached those mountains, they hit pay dirt. This really wacky looking rock cropping up out of the ground. Look at that rock's shadow. Look at the shapes of the weird little beans on stalks cropping out of this rock. They called this pot of gold. It was the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow after that long drive. And it had hematite in it. It had minerals that told us about water on Mars. It was weird, but finally Spirit was telling us that water on Mars story that we had sent Spirit there to study. And there again is a picture of pot of gold on the left and another really bizarre rock to the right of it called bread box, I think, that was all eaten up inside. And so Spirit continued to climb mountains, and once you start climbing mountains, I don't care about the science anymore. The landscape is just really awesome, and this is one of my favorite pictures from Spirit's mountain climb, where we got to see the landscape that we had come from and the landscape that we were about to explore. Well, okay, fast forward another 10 years, and we get to Curiosity, which landed again in a pretty flat spot, but there is a mountain right there that we were going to explore. Now, it's going to take us a while to get there. It's been more than 520 sols already, and we're still got a long way to go. But as soon as Curiosity started driving, again, bedrock cropping right up out of the ground, looking like broken concrete in the middle of a sidewalk. You look at it up close, and it looks even more like broken concrete. It's an aggregate. It's got round pebbles embedded in a finer-grained matrix that tells us that those round pebbles say that there was a river running across this Martian landscape, tumbling rocks. It was somewhere between ankle and hip deep, running across the surface of Mars. Just think about that for a second. And that's the bedrock that Curiosity, with its amazing science package is now able to explore on the surface of Mars. Curiosity kept driving and came to this geologist wonderland, bedrock as far as the eye can see. More stories to tell with layers upon layers of different kinds of rocks. And like any good geologist, Curiosity carries a hand lens that you can look at the rocks up close and see little sand grains that tell you about how strong the wind, or in this case, again, water was that was moving these little pebbles along the ground, little granules. The biggest ones are about 3 millimeters across. And so now this is a view that Curiosity took of Sol 468 about 2 months ago, so not too long ago. And we still got a long way to drive to get to the mountain, but we're gonna keep driving, and eventually we're gonna get to the rocks that are at the base of that mountain that contain clay minerals and sulfate minerals, and the science is going to be absolutely fantastic.
And the mountain is huge, right?
The mountain is enormous. Curiosity is not guaranteed to climb this mountain, okay? If you look at the top of this mountain that you can see here, that's actually not the top of the mountain. It's still just near the bottom. That stuff is all wind-blown sediments, most likely, maybe, except we could get up close and find out something different entirely. That's why we're going, after all. If we knew what was there, we wouldn't be exploring it. But down close to the bottom, there are some really, really awesome-looking rocks that I can't wait to read and tell the geologic story.
Okay.
That's it.
Emily Lakawala, don't go away, Emily. I want you to stick around to help us welcome our first very distinguished special guest, who has led the Mars Exploration Rover mission for, I think it's safe to say, far longer than he or anybody else ever imagined possible. He was a student of Carl Sagan. Now he teaches some of the classes that Carl Sagan taught. Please welcome Goldwin Smith, Professor of Astronomy at Cornell University, Steve Squires.
Hey there.
Hey, Steve. As you can
I
hear...
hope for God's great we can actually make this Skype thing work. I'm sorry I can't be there myself, but there are just too many celebrations going on both sides of the country right now.
Yeah, but that's exactly what should be happening right now, and we're really honored that you could be here for this part of this. Where are you right now? Let us know.
I'm in my hotel room in our nation's capital where it is freezing cold. I hope it's warmer where you are.
Quite a bit, as you probably know. Listen, first of all, congratulations again on the glorious success of these two little rovers. The story's not over yet, as we know. Opportunity still alive and kicking, as we've already heard. What is she up to right now?
Right now, we're looking at something really strange. A couple weeks ago, a weird thing happened where we imaged some bedrock that we had seen just a few days before. And a few days before, it was just flat bedrock, and then we looked at it again, and there was this rock about this big sitting there that hadn't been there previously. And it was a strange-looking rock. It's white around the outside. It's red in the middle. I keep saying it looks like a jelly donut. And when I say red, it's not like Mars red. It's like raspberry jam red. It's very strange-looking. And we don't know exactly how it got there. Our best theory is that a few days earlier, we had been uphill from this spot a meter or two, and we did a pirouette, a turn in place. And because the right front steering actuator on this thing doesn't turn properly anymore, when we do a move like that, it's going to kind of chatter across the ground. And we think we kind of tiddlywinked the rock up out of the ground, and it moved a meter or two downhill, and then it obligingly flipped itself upside down. So now we get to see a side of it that hasn't seen the Martian atmosphere in maybe billions of years. So we've been looking at this thing, and we've taken pictures with the microscope, and we've been looking at the chemistry. The chemistry's really weird. There's some very, very strange assemblage of sulfate salts here, which might have precipitated down beneath the ground. I got to say, we don't know yet where it came from. The place that we think it came from is currently invisible to us because the solar arrays are in the way. So we're going to kind of back off and turn and take a look, and I think we'll probably see like a little divot or socket that it came out of. But that's
like
been kind of interesting, and it was a complete surprise. Say what?
Would it be like a stalactite that was sticking up, that you have something that was poking up that got chipped
No,
off?
I think it was just a piece of flat ground that we happened to catch in a funny way with the wheel, and it just kind of flipped. But that's a theory. I don't know. We haven't found where it came from.
Are we expecting a white divot, like the other side of the rock?
That's a great question. That's a great question. We've been arguing exactly that point on the team, and one of the things we want to do is find the hole, because there should be a complementary surface from which the jelly donut emerged.
Which is
So we'll
the
see.
nickname that you gave it, right? You heard that, folks?
It's actually named as Pinnacle Island, and I should probably just call it that instead of this jelly donut nonsense. But
It's
anyway,
too
that's
late
what it
now.
looks like.
It's gone viral. The jelly donut is pretty famous now. There were other theories, of course. You were in a press briefing earlier today, and there was a question through social media that came from the original Captain Kirk, William Shatner. What was his theory?
Yes. He was wondering if Martians were throwing rocks at us, and I told him probably not. But another theory that we've talked about is, it's what I call the smoking hole in the ground theory, that somehow in that 4-day period, an impact crater formed somewhere that we haven't seen yet nearby, and a piece of ejecta, stuff thrown out of the crater, just happened to land right in front of us. My gut tells me that one's unlikely, but we'll check it out.
Emily, you look like you'd love to ask a question.
Well, yeah, I can't help but notice as you're speaking that you're talking about the rover's wheels moving and your arms are doing this, you're gesticulating wildly. How much do you identify physically with the physical being of those rovers on another planet?
Okay, stop right there, Emily, because I'm going to call you out on this one. I was listening to you when you were talking about curiosity, and you said, it's going to take us a long time to get there, but we're going to get to the top. You're in Pasadena. You're not on Mars. I'm in D.C., but we use that language.
That's fair enough.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of this, is that...
But, Steve, is there any way to detect...
Well, hang on. Yeah. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
We create these things, and then we project ourselves into them. Not just the creators, not just the engineers who built them, not just the scientists who operate them, but we, all of us, everybody on this planet who is interested in what goes on Mars. Those rovers are the embodiment of our dreams, our aspirations, our hopes, and we feel like we're there. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a way to project a human presence onto another world. And yeah, I feel that way, and obviously so do you.
Bill?
Is there no seismic instrument? Like if a giant rock had landed nearby, you wouldn't have felt the vibration or the camera shake or some extraordinary thing?
Cars are bad vehicles for carrying seismometers, right? You want to have, we got a 6-wheeled car on Mars. Seismometer you want to put on a spacecraft like InSight, which is launching to Mars in 2016, which will emplace it solidly into the ground. So a rover is not the right platform for a seismometer. We don't carry one. But, if there's a smoking hole in the ground, we'll take a look around. We'll see if we can find it.
Emily?
You had a press briefing today where you talked about a new science paper publication about the clays that you're finding on Endeavour's rim.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can tell the crowd here a little bit about how the Mars that's recorded in Endeavour's rim is different from the Mars that's recorded in the rocks that Opportunity was exploring before she got to Endeavour's rim.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because the Mars that we've seen through most of Opportunity's mission is different from the Mars of today, dramatically. But the Mars that we reported on in our recent science paper was different again. When we crossed the boundary from the Meridiani Plains into the rim of Endeavour Crater, it's just like what you described where we crossed the boundary from the Gusev Plains onto the Columbia Hills. Everything changed. And in both cases, we were going from sort of middle-aged Martian rocks to really ancient Martian rocks. And the ancient Mars that we see preserved in the rim of Endeavour clearly had water. I mean, we see fractures as wide as your thumb that are filled with pure gypsum, which is a salt of calcium sulfate that precipitates from liquid water. So clearly water was coursing through these rocks. But the particularly interesting thing that we found recently with these aluminum-rich clays, these incredible concentrations of aluminum-rich clays that we report in our new paper, is unlike the water that was out on the plains. We talk about water on Mars at the Opportunity site. It's really sulfuric acid on Mars that we find evidence for. It was very low pH. It was nasty stuff if you're, most forms of life. But the water that flowed through these fractures at this place we call Esperance, which is what we report on in our recent paper, it was neutral. It was neutral pH. It was water you could drink. And that's very ancient. These are the oldest rocks we've ever seen with the Opportunity rover. And so what we're seeing is that despite the fact that kind of middle-aged Mars had what was apparently a kind of acid environment, very early Mars, it was much more life-friendly.
Steve, we're already running a little bit behind. Not surprising when there is so much to talk about these missions that we'll be talking about tonight and this entire fascinating planet. But I want to throw one more at you, and this is more of a human-related one. It's this location on Mars that you have named after a great explorer that we lost just a few months ago.
Yes, yeah, this was very important to us. There are many wonderful things about having been on Mars for 10 years, but one of the sad things, the tragic things about a mission of this duration is that over the course of the mission, you lose friends and colleagues and leaders. And as you know, not too long ago, Bruce Murray passed away. And Bruce was one of the towering figures of planetary science. Of course, he had obviously a huge role as the founder of one of the founders of the Planetary Society, but he was a sedimentologist. He was a Mars scientist of great renown. He wrote papers back in the 60s that are still widely cited today. And then, of enormous significance, he was the director of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, late 70s, early 80s. This was a time frame when, in fact, Bill, you mentioned, this was a time frame when planetary science was under an enormous amount of pressure. Funding pressure from the government, shrinking budgets. It wasn't clear what the future was going to hold. And leading a place like JPL through a time like that, it requires really steady, strong leadership. And Bruce provided that. He really is one of the truly great figures in the history of our field. And so when Bruce passed away, we felt very strongly that we needed to find a feature on Mars that had characteristics that were appropriate for naming after him. We spent some time finding the right thing, but as we head to the south from our current location, we're going to be climbing this massive ridge. It'll be the tallest thing, if we can get up it, that either one of our rovers has ever climbed. It's higher than the highest point that we climbed in the Columbia Hills. And we named that ridge that we're ascending towards what we call the mother lode, the place where we think the highest concentrations of clays are. We named that Murray Ridge in Bruce's honor.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Steve, stay with us if you can for a few minutes, because we do have to make a switch here by saying goodbye to my colleague Emily, so we can bring up our next two very special guests. To get us through that transition, we're going to go back to our special musical guests, Hedgehog Swing. They're going to get us through this. This gypsy jazz band would, I think it's safe to say, make their hero Django Reinhardt very proud. They happen to be from my hometown of Long Beach, California. Please help me welcome back Hedgehog Swing. Hedgehog Swing. Thanks, guys. You can learn more about them on their Facebook page. They'll be back later in tonight's show. The band was with us last time that our next guest joined us for Planetary Radio Live. When I asked him to come back for this show, the first thing he said to me was, "Can we get Hedgehog Swing to come back?" We could not refuse the project scientists for Curiosity, the Mars Science Laboratory rover. Please welcome Caltech's Fletcher Jones Professor of Geology, John Grotzinger. Grab that mic. Now, John is also part of the Mars Exploration Rover mission, headed by Steve Squires, who, have we lost him? Oh, we're trying to place that call again. We'll see if we get Steve back on. So is the next guy who's coming up to the stage right now. He's the man you want to talk to if you have $1 billion or more worth of science and technology that you want to get down to Mars in one piece. We have watched his beard turn gray as he and others figured out how to do that. Please welcome JPL's Mars Engineering Manager, Rob Manning.
I lost you for a minute, but I'm back.
So, guys, I don't know if Steve's going to be back or not. It looks like we lost him. That's what you get for using hotel Wi-Fi networks, I guess. But let's start, though, with a question that is related to this other mission that you guys were both also, still are members of. What really did Curiosity, how did Curiosity benefit from what Spirit and Opportunity were able to do, both from the engineering and from the science viewpoints? John?
I think from the science viewpoint, there was an amazing overlap between the number of team members that we've got on MSL and also Spirit and Opportunity. And learning how to rove on Mars is not easy, and it takes a long time. And the way that you explore and the patience, a lot of times it's required to wait for the robot to do things in a matter of months that you could have done in hours on Earth. I think all that kind of experience was incredibly valuable, if not essential, to the success of Curiosity.
By the way, I think if I understood correctly, we have audio from Steve, but not video. So Steve, can you still hear us?
I can hear you just fine, yeah.
Yeah, sorry we can't see. We're really missing out not getting to see you gesticulate, but just the same, we'll get the enthusiasm from your voice.
So is the radio audience.
Rob, I want to let you tackle that.
It's almost hard to imagine because when I started this work, we were building a little lander with a little rover on it, and we just could only imagine what was on the other side of the hill. And in fact, one of the most it was wonderful to put Sojourner on Mars, little Sojourner, and then we drove around, and as Emily showed, we went out there clear across the room. And maybe to your backyard, but there was a hill behind us, just to the north of us. I really wanted to go to see what was on top of the hill. And there was these twin peaks in distance. We wanted to go over there. The sense that we were still trapped with our lander was so profound that it's just very frustrating. It was like you feel like you've been tied up and looking out the window in your car, and you've parked in a beautiful landscape, but you can't get out of your car. So when we came up with Spirit and Opportunity, it was really, for us, it was really a major epiphany. Really, everyone knew that we had to get out and move. But in fact, if you realize, remember the requirement we had for building these two little rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, was 600 meters. That's not even a kilometer. I mean, that's not very far at all. That's how. We weren't exactly intrepid explorers back then. We thought, because we didn't dare dream that we could go that far. But 600 meters, you can actually go to the top of the hill. You can actually.
That's a lap and a half.
It's a lap and a half.
On a high school track, on an Olympic track.
Right, but for us, going from almost something the size of this room to something where you can actually go out into your neighborhood was something a very exciting thought. And really with Spirit and Opportunity, we really did learn how to do it on the job because I mean I can't tell you how bizarre it was to think that when we landed. Spirit, we came up, and as Emily showed, we drove to the top of this Bonneville crater rim, looked out, and this big sigh of disappointment without seeing. Remember that? Wow, there are no outcrops in this crater, just a bunch of tilled up basalt. And then Steve turns around, right? Steve, remember this? Remember Steve? we're going over there. And literally, he says that. And he points to these hills, and the distance, I'm going, Steve, that's not 600 meters. That's a lot more than that. And you know, and then soon later, an opportunity going up to Endurance Crater, and then was this, and then Steve goes, hey Rob, let's go down there. Steve, that's 25, 30 degree slopes. Okay, can you test that? Well, we only qualified it for 15 degrees, Steve. 15, not 25.
There's nobody standing there to catch it if it starts to tip over.
No.
Right?
Yeah, fortunately.
Actually, Rob, if you'll recall, I think we hit a maximum of 34.
Yeah, I remember freaking out. Especially we were driving sideways and we were sliding down. Remember that? What was that big brain?
Yeah, at Burns Cliff. That's
Burns
right.
Cliff.
That's right. Hutzinger was going nuts because of all the sedimentary rocks, and all the engineers were freaking out.
I mean, well, and then he says, okay, so Steve, we just can't drive down the hill. We have to learn how to do it. We have to test it.
This is Scotty talking to Captain Kirk.
Yes.
Captain, the engines won't take it.
Captain, we can't do it. Yeah, the hill's too
it is
steep.
a different. I just want to point out to everybody, it's a different vibe when you're with the geologists. We're going crazy for this sedimentary rock, and we get to the top of the crater. There's nothing but tilled up basalt. It's just, I've been in a lot of meetings. It doesn't happen that much, in television.
But what actually happened was, as soon as Opportunity landed, the team split in half because we had to, because there's two rovers. And we went to find Steve, and everybody that had been really interested in geology and outcrop that had signed up to work on Gusev went and asked Steve, can we switch over to Meridiani? And all the guys that were interested in basalt moved over to Gusev.
Oh, yeah.
And it was two perfect teams.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Not bad.
But and the thing is, coming up with new functional requirements, as we call them, for what the rover has to do, weeks after we land was a little bit of a shock to all of us engineers. It was like, you want to do what? And so, going down these slopes, so we actually had a detailed test program. We built a big rock pile on a ramp and lifted it way up and tried driving over flagstone on this cliff. I couldn't even climb up it. It was too steep for me to walk. And he said, well, no, we could do that.
I remember that. That. There was I've got this great picture of this test rig, and there's a steep slope, and there's this guy on the thing, and he's wearing a safety harness and a rope because of the safety regulations of JPL. The rover's on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, the rover's doing fine, thank you. Without us, we did put a safety harness to the rover for a while. We were a little nervous about that. But so I guess to answer your question, I'm a little bit of a long-winded answer. So yes, we learned a lot.
Answers.
We learned a ton. I mean, the feeling of actually learning how to be a robotic rover on another planet was really made possible by Spirit and Opportunity. I mean, Sojourner was proof we could do it, and the fact that we called it Pathfinder, which was unrelated to all these other missions, it was a Pathfinder for what's called a network lander. It became a Pathfinder for Spirit and Opportunity, and then MSL, and it really worked. I can't imagine a better sequence of events that made almost like we thought of it up on purpose, and we didn't.
Steve, we talked about how these guys have been part of your mission for so many years. You're also on the Curiosity mission, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm an investigator on two of the instruments, the APXS that's on the arm, which does the elemental chemistry, and then this wonderful, complicated beast of a chemistry set inside the rover called SAM, which looks for organics and all kinds of other stuff. And yeah, I'm having great fun on both rovers.
So it's really a community. That's the sense that we get here. And I mean, you had thousands of people making the Mars exploration rovers the success that they are still demonstrating on Mars. Much of that team is involved in many other ways. It seems that there's a lesson in that, in what needs to be sustained in this community of scientists, engineers, and explorers.
It's funny. There are two elements to this. One is that there is enormous continuity, and my hair didn't used to have all this gray in it, and Rob didn't have all that gray in his beard, and so forth and so on. And some of us have been at this for a long time. And there is continuity, and that continuity helps make each mission that comes be stronger than it would have been otherwise. But the wonderful thing to me is not, seeing us as our hair gets more gray. It's seeing the youngsters coming up from behind. There are a number of important tactical roles that we have daily on opportunity, and we have a important role is called the tactical downlink lead. It's the person who's really responsible for assessing the state of health of the rover and reporting it to the team. And one of our tactical downlink leads for opportunity and spirit, or for opportunity today, was in middle school when we landed. She was 14, and now she's a TDL. And it's just a wonderful thing to see this next generation of engineers and scientists, some of whom were really inspired to go into this business by what they saw when they were younger.
It's getting late there. It's what, 10:30, past 10:30 now, where you are.
Yep.
I want to leave with this. You said during the press conference that took place earlier today that it sounded like, anyway, you're still looking out a year, 2 years into the future for opportunity. I mean,
I'm looking. Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm looking at least that far, maybe farther. I mean, Rob and his compatriots built us some really good rovers, but we voided the warranty on this thing, Rob, a long time ago. And the wheels could fall off tomorrow, or we could be celebrating our 20th anniversary on Mars 10 years from now. I have no idea. So we look to the future. We always think ahead to where the next science might be. We push ourselves and we push our rover as hard as we possibly can. We try to treat each day as the gift that it is. But yeah, we're looking to the future. We're looking to the future with opportunity. We're looking to the future with curiosity. And we're looking to the future way beyond that. We had a museum opening not too long ago. There's this exhibit celebrating the 10th year of MER at the Air and Space Museum here in D.C. And while I was in town this week, I had a chance to actually go back to the exhibit. We had this big fancy thing with the NASA administrator a couple weeks ago, but I just kind of snuck in, and just was in there watching. And I didn't look at the pictures because I know all the pictures. I was watching the kids looking at the pictures and thinking, what are they going to do? That to me is the real future. So, yeah, of course, that's what we do.
Bill, any last words for Steve before we bid him good night?
Well, let's say the thing doesn't go another 10 years. What is it that's going to give up?
Yeah.
The heaters? The motors?
Memory chips. I heard a little bit about that from John Callis today.
There are so many. I mean, Rob could sit there, and between the two of us, Rob, I bet we could list off 100 single-point failures that could kill the rover without the slightest warning. I can think of lots of things that would happen. Some of them would be gradual degradation. You'd get a sense that something was going wrong. Other ones, you'd never see it coming, and the next morning you just don't wake up. It's a complicated machine with a lot of single-string stuff, and we don't know. I mean, the way you project the lifetime of spaceflight hardware is you do lifetime testing, and we've driven these things to, in some cases, 50 times more than what we tested them to before we launched them. So, they could last another day or another decade. We can't tell.
But you can't possibly have any regrets if opportunity were to leave this mortal coil tomorrow, other than that one more rock or hill that you wished you could reach?
Yeah, I guess that's probably right. I have found that I've done a very poor job of being able to predict how I would feel at various major mission events. I thought launch was going to be this kind of joyful moment. In fact, launch was very poignant for me because it was kind of hard to say goodbye to the rovers. The death of Spirit I thought would be terrible, and it wasn't. We kind of saw it coming, plus it was an honorable death, plus we still had opportunity going. I don't know how I'm going to feel when opportunity dies. I've been doing this since 1987, and what that's going to feel like, I don't know. I really don't know. I hope it doesn't happen soon because I'm having too much fun. We'll see.
You also said today at that press conference that whatever happens with opportunity, this has really been a glorious mission. I'm kind of paraphrasing here now, that this has been a tremendous accomplishment. You said that it's possible that the best science is still ahead of us. I know there isn't a person in this room who doesn't hope that that's exactly the case for opportunity, and who also wouldn't want to thank you for coming here tonight, joining us at this late hour back there in the nation's capital. Thank you so much.
Really glad I could join you. John.
Steve Squires of Cornell University. He is the principal investigator for the Mars Exploration Rover mission. Now, we wanted to relive the heart-stopping moments when Spirit first bounced down, remember the beach balls? When it bounced down onto the red planet. But, believe it or not, people from here looked at SCPR, I looked, we could not find a good enough quality video of what was taking place in the control room. And we'll try and do that for some other time, I hope. But we instead turned to a very similar scene that took place in one of those JPL control rooms, but this one was just a year and a half ago. Here again are at least a little bit of that famous 7 minutes of terror, and see if you recognize these guys in the room that we'll be watching in this video.
Totally stable. UHF is good. Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
This sounds great. You know, maybe we'll try and restart it. And the radio audience will never know, the live audience will.
Sounds the same to me on the radio.
When we come...
No, it does.
When we come back, we're going to be bringing up another special guest, and that'll be Jim Bell. But we have to make the Skype call to him first. Let's see if we can get this up on the projector first of all, and then we'll restart that. For those of you who have joined us, the live webcast, we are also thrilled that you're out there watching the program tonight. Thanks so much. Stay with us. We're going to be going until 9 o'clock Pacific time. Still lots to talk about as we bring up Jim Bell and Rob Manning and John Grotzinger and Bill Nye. Stay with us here on stage. We'll give it a few more moments here. And I'll see if I get a high sign from back there. We're going to hear a couple of more complete songs. There we go. Ready to roll? Can we take it from the top?
Totally stable. UHF is good. Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
It's where Steve falls to his knees.
Time to see where our curiosity will take us.
There you are,
There's Rob.
Out of your mind.
That's Charles Alachi, the JPL director. There's John, getting a hug.
At this time, flyaway should be complete. The 10 stages at a safe distance. We are continuing to receive telemetry from Curiosity. We're safe.
Getting data from the surface of Mars. ASCAM sequence is kicked off, waiting for images.
Okay, keep watching.
Heads up, folks! PL Ops, the signal to Odyssey remains strong. Flight EDL images are starting to come down.
We're beginning to get images
We got
from
images
Odyssey.
coming down, folks.
Oh, can we? I thought we were going to roll into the images there. It's just as exciting when the first image appears and you guys just go nuts once again. I mean,
It's a picture from another world. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
and did you believe that this was going to work? Sky cranes, an incredible
Powered by
7
rockets.
minutes.
What, are
Powered
you
by
crazy?
rockets, yeah. Lowered on a winch down to the surface of Mars. Rob.
Of course you thought it was going to work. You wouldn't have said it if you didn't think it was going to work.
In fact, I actually had higher expectations of success for MSL than we had with the airbag landers. And but on the other hand, this beast was so much more damn complicated. It was a very complicated machine that there was so much more things that could go wrong that we had our fingertips on, things that we cause. It wasn't Mars I was worried about. With airbags, I'm worried about wind gusts and sharp rocks and hills and slopes. On this vehicle, I'm worried about the spark on touchdown messing up the signals that go up from the rover to the descent stage, and the descent stage going right on top of our head. And so there's a lot of things to worry about, and people often wonder, why are these people so excited? It's because they've worked very hard and they've been practicing and practicing getting this right, and this is the last run they've ever done of any test they need to do. So after years of making it happen, it's a heck of a relief.
John, far too many project scientists have had moments like this that did not go as well. You must have been thinking, wow, now I get to start doing science.
It's a little bit like what Steve just said as he closed out here. You actually have an idea of what you think you're going to feel like, what you should feel like, and then it happens. And I think it's the same thing. When you realize that this was going to happen, there is a sense of, a $2.5 billion priceless national asset has just landed on the surface, and now you have to make something happen. Mm-hmm. And so, these guys all go off to the local bar, and it's 10:30 at night. None of us have slept anyway, and we actually have to go to work. No, it's not really true. Those guys we're all looking at the systems, making sure things check out. But it's the beginning. It's all zero. And, the beginning of a mission, and you wonder what's going to happen. And those pictures that came down, that's a great story in its own right, because it was very much of a negotiation between science and engineering, because what you're really doing at the instant of landing is you want all of the telemetry to come down that tells you about the spacecraft's state of health. But at the same time, that's offset against any data volume that sends down a picture. Are pictures really important? Well, I don't know. Do we really need them? It's important to know exactly if the spacecraft fails, exactly how, or if it's not safe, if it's there but not functioning properly. We want to know how. So to get those pictures down, what I was wondering at that moment was hoping and praying that the data volume that would execute would allow the one picture to come down, but the other one that came down 39 minutes later with the dust covers off that actually showed Mount Sharp, that to me is possibly still my favorite picture of the mission, because there you see the iconic vision of what we had always wondered from orbit. Is it there on the ground? That was amazing, and it was all a matter of data volume.
How tall is Mount Sharp?
It's a little over 5 kilometers. So it's taller than any mountain in the lower 48, taller than Mount Whitney.
About 16,000 feet, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's big.
Higher than Mount Rainier.
It is. It's higher than any mountain in the lower 48.
Yeah.
And how far are we away from, I say we, how far are we away from it now, us?
200 million miles, did you say?
200 million miles.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Wise guys.
Yeah. It's brilliant. Yeah, I spent a lot of time that far away, actually. So how far is the rover from there?
Yeah, we're about halfway from where we landed, more or less. We got about 5 kilometers to go. But
here's what happens. You start rolling. Hey, here's a rock. Hey, look at this. Yeah.
That's where it comes back a little bit to what Matt was saying. What do we learn from the previous rover missions? The going from rock to rock to rock. When we landed with Spirit and Opportunity, I can remember Squires going on and on about how we cannot stop at every rock because we have bigger aspirations. We got to do things. We have to put them in context. And so we still looked at lots of rocks. And so with Curiosity, it's such a capable vehicle that looking at individual rocks is not as rewarding. There's much bigger prizes there. So we benefited from rock looking in earlier missions, but we still do it.
Jim?
So how long do you think before you get there? We get there. Us, that.
It's every mission has its challenges, and we got a new one. We're in kind of a briar patch right now. We were booking along, going as fast as we could, and
Just
suddenly,
punching it.
punching it and punching with rocks, punching through the wheels. And so when we realized that actually this terrain is really rugged and pointy, and so we've had to slow it down a lot because we want to protect the rover and try to understand exactly how the mobility system is interacting with the terrain. And then as we build our confidence up, we'll pick up the pace again.
I got to apologize to our next guest, who is patiently waiting on Skype, has been waiting for a little while now. And I do want to bring him into this conversation. He's another one of those Cornell grads, like you, Bill, whose careers were partially shaped by Carl Sagan. Now he's a professor at Arizona State University's School of Earth and Space Exploration. He has served as lead scientist for the panoramic cameras, or PanCams, on Spirit and Opportunity. And his books include Postcards from Mars, and most recently the Space Book. I call him the Ansel Adams of Mars. Incidentally, he's also president of the Planetary Society's board. Please welcome via Skype, Jim Bell.
Hey Matt, it's great to see you. It's great to see one of my heroes, Rob Manning, right there. This guy can do anything. What's that line? He could land a washing machine if somebody let him. Awesome. And I recognize Bill Nye's left knee right there. It's good to see it healed. Most famous dancing engineer, scientist in the world. Way to go, Bill.
We should tell the audience here and at home that there's a little tiny webcam over there that is giving Jim this lousy wide-angle view of the stage. He's not getting to see the nice picture that we have of Jim. Jim, you're sitting right up here on the panel next to us. You are also a part of, I think a lot of people identify you with the Mars Exploration Rover mission, and those beautiful, those stunning photos we saw, a few of them from Emily at the opening of the show. But you're also part of the Curiosity mission, right?
Yeah. So I work really closely with John. And what is it, John? 500 science team members now on Curiosity. A huge collection of principal investigators and geologists and atmospheric scientists and geochemists and students, and just a great collection of people.
How have you seen things evolve? We can even take it all the way back to Sojourner if you like, but at least from those glorious days 10 years ago when Spirit and Opportunity came bouncing down onto the surface. Really, what have we learned? And this is for all of you. Rob, you can jump in as well, you engineer. What have we learned about Mars?
Well, that's really good. That's a really great question, Matt, and I suspect all of us is going to have different answers. One of the answers is one that Rob already gave. We've learned how to operate remote control cars on another planet. We've learned how to tweak our own crazy circadian rhythms to live on Mars time for months before going crazy as the sun rises on one rover and the sun sets on the other rover, and the sun never sets on the JPL Mars Empire, right? So it works. And we've learned how to operate on another world, and we've learned a whole bunch of science about these very special places on Mars. Both the Gusev site for Spirit, the Meridiani site for Opportunity, now the Gale Crater site for Curiosity. All of those places could have been habitable environments by the way that we define them here on the Earth. The presence of liquid water interacting with the rock, heat sources, possibly organic molecules. We know that organics are raining down on Mars from asteroids and comets all the time, and Curiosity is well equipped to try to find them if they're there. And so, just knowing that there were habitable environments by the way we define them on this planet, and that we're good at finding them, based on this spectacular array of orbiters that have been up there for decades now, taking pictures, making mineral measurements from orbit, and adapting our own way of thinking from the Pathfinder results, Spirit, Opportunity, now Curiosity. One of John's colleagues at Caltech has figured out how, where we should look in certain kinds of cliffs and exposures to find the most freshly exposed material on the surface. And so we're learning how to explore this place. And I think that's just a wonderful thing.
John, I want to let you get in on that. What have we learned?
Yeah, I think Jim really hit the nail on the head there. This iterative, Mars is special for many reasons, but one of the things, this process of having alternating orbiters and rovers and landers, and they iterate and they go back and forth. I think that we have benefited tremendously from that, because you can start to explore for something very systematically. And Bill's got his two big questions, and this issue about are we alone is actually very much related to how did we get here. So if you go back to the early Earth, where I did most of my exploring early on in my career, what we're doing now on Mars is very close to the state of the art of what we do on Earth. We know that this planet teems with life, but if you go back and look at rocks that are billions of years old, you almost never find evidence for it. And I'll skip all the mumbo jumbo and chemistry, but the important thing about it is that we by studying the Earth, we can learn how to study another terrestrial planet, and by having alternating rovers and orbiters, we can hone in on the thing that we're most interested in and take that grand question and break it down into bite-sized chunks that, if we're just patient enough, we've got a decent chance to honestly address this question.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I never dreamed that in my professional career that we would advance from just looking around and looking out the window and just barely tasting Mars. I mean, really, if you think about it, we were, 20 years ago, we had these fantastic images from Viking, and Viking did, and as well as Mariner 9 and other missions that gave us a hint that Mars was a more interesting place than we dared dream. I remember talking to Mike Carr and suggesting, well, Mike, maybe we might see true evidence of a water-altered rock. And he goes, no, Rob, don't go there. We don't have the evidence. It's too soon. Don't get your hopes up. And okay, I'm sorry, I won't get my hopes up. But the fact is,
could have been liquid carbon dioxide, mercury, something.
Yeah. But the fact that we were able to get to this point where now we're doing terrestrial science, Earth-like science on another planet. That's the part that in just really a small number of years has blown me away. The thing that scares me most is, how do we top this? I mean, this.
Oh, I got some ideas.
You got some ideas? Well, maybe I'll land it for you. But it is pretty astounding that we've gotten to this level of detail. I mean, it's a whole nother generation of scientists and engineers who now think about this problem so much more differently than we did. Our fundamental job was just getting out there and looking around and barely interacting with the surface and barely doing much science with it. And suddenly now we're doing
It's taken for granted. You're going to land on the surface with any instrument you can think of, right?
Pretty much, yeah. So it's really a whole nother level. I mean, there's several key in my mind, key scientific exploration milestones that happened that just revolutionized. One was when we went backwards down Endurance Crater and we did this stratigraphic section. Remember that? We walked down. Jim remembers that. We went down. Think about that. That to me, I got chills down my back when that happened, because it was no longer just going out going, ooh, what's that? What's that? It's actually doing systematic science.
And Rob, 10 years ago, that was kind of state of the art of what we were doing on the early Earth. Yeah. Doing chemostratigraphy, bed by bed, looking not just if there's water, but how the water changes through time.
Right.
We're doing a time series.
And would you have guessed, Jim, or would you have guessed that we could have actually found a section without having, we actually thought to do this, we'd have to build these giant drilling gantries to go down tens of meters on Mars. Instead, Mars provides a way to do it. We didn't even know we could do that.
We'd never seen outcrop on Mars before January 24th, 2004. So, of course not, no.
Yeah. So it's been revolutionary for us. And then the other iconic thing for me is the Cumberland, the second drill hole. We drilled into that hole, and with this fantastic camera, the Molly camera on the end of the robotic arm, we looked into that hole, and you could see little tiny veins. And what's more, we were able to target the ChemCam laser and produce dot, 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 and shot holes inside a dime-sized hole.
Humans sent a ray gun to Mars.
Damn straight.
And the level of exploration has gone down to a couple of orders of magnitude, it seems to me. in terms of how our ability to understand. The problem is, how do you get to the next order of magnitude? I don't know, in terms of understanding, and I think it's Mars is looking bigger all the time.
Rob, the other thing
Jim.
that's happened is, we've been able to take the public along with us in this incredible ride. Not just members of the Planetary Society who can follow Emily's blog and Bill's posts, and it's great stuff. But just the general public who's interested in downloading images, we put it out there almost as soon as it comes down from the Deep Space Network. There's this big community of amateur enthusiasts who make mosaics and panoramas and false color, and they do spectacular work. And that community is growing, and they're connected to this exploration enterprise in a way that I never could when I was a kid. The way I connected was to join the Planetary Society in 1980, when Carl Sagan and Bruce Murray and Lou Friedman founded it. That's how I connected. But nowadays, it's all out there on the web. We work really hard to involve people in these great adventures.
I was going to bring this up when we watched the video, because when you guys were celebrating in your control room, Bill, you remember where you were that day.
Yeah, we were at the Pasadena Civic Center, the auditorium.
Yeah.
We had 3,000 people going crazy
Yes.
for a rover landing on another world. It was amazing. People are just engaged. It's exciting.
Absolutely.
So this brings me, if I may, gentlemen, this brings me to a routine question for Bill the little kid. When are we going to send people there? Because people can explore so much faster than, I know you guys are, and I am too. I'm a mechanical engineer, all right? I'm into it. But I'm excited when we go 1 kilometer. Yes! It only took 3 months. But if people were there, one of the numbers you guys throw around, the geologists throw around, it's about a factor of 10,000, right? If there were a human there, what a human can do, what a rover can do in a week, a human does in about a minute.
Bill, it really depends which RP's on duty.
But let me amplify that question about beginning with, when do the humans get to go? What have these rovers done to help pave the way? How are they making it easier for us to contemplate sending humans? Jim?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of information that we need to know about Mars before people can really go there and be effective. And it was the same with the exploration of the moon. Prior to the human exploration of the moon and the Apollo missions, there were rangers, there were surveyors, and of course there was Mercury and Gemini. So there was, the human side getting ready for that part of the adventure, but also the science, the robotics side was doing a lot of the supporting measurements, the basic physical properties. What are the temperatures like? What's the environment like? How hard or soft is the soil? Is it potentially toxic in some way? So just making those basic fundamental measurements. And that's partly what Pathfinder, Spirit, Opportunity, and Curiosity have been doing for the past few decades, helping us get that basic fundamental information. It's partly what the orbiters are doing up above Mars, mapping the planet globally, trying to find the best places to send people, because there'll be somewhere that's the first place that we send people. And that's going to be a really important place because it will have been identified as a potentially habitable environment. It will have had to have been identified as safe to land. And probably, and this is just my guess, and John and others should speculate, it will have been identified as a place where we need people to go, probably to go in this direction instead of that direction. Go set up drill rigs, get down into the subsurface, which is protected from the ultraviolet, and maybe where it's warmer, maybe there's a water table, et cetera, but get deep into the subsurface, doing the things that it's worthy of sending human explorers to do.
Can I rappel down a cliff?
Let's do it.
I'm really
I
up
want to
for
go.
it.
John, what do you think?
Well, for example, we don't want the astronauts to show up and have the rocks poke holes in their boots.
Yeah.
These are aluminum wheels, right, with holes poked in them.
It's true.
Yeah, bring steel-toed shoes with you on Mars.
What kind of steel?
Before we get back to you, John, Rob, do we know now how to get a really big can full of people down onto the surface of Mars?
I think the answer to that is we know how it might happen, but we don't know the way it will happen. Ironically, one of the challenges is that Mars has such a thin atmosphere. It's not like the moon where you can fire engines backwards. There's too much atmosphere to do that, and there's too little atmosphere to land on Mars like you do on Earth. With the space shuttle, it uses its belly as a heat shield, and then uses its wings to slow down further and land on the runway. So we have these Rube Goldbergian contraptions that we've invented that convert from an Earth-like landing system to a lunar-like landing system at the very end, and it's very, very complicated. So that's true. That would be true even worse for larger systems because if the larger you are and the heavier you are, the less you slow down. Because unless you have a really big flat area that slows you down, so it's really hard, and it's not impossible. The laws of physics don't prevent it. It's just that you're going to see some very large things get to Mars to help slow you down in order to do it properly. So the answer is we could do it. It's just a challenge, really big challenge. But I think it won't be all that different from Curiosity's landing. I mean, I do think that it'd be able to land at an elevation similar to a Gale crater. It'd be able to land in a region as small as, or if not smaller, than where Curiosity landed in our little landing area, the 12 by 7 by 20, we could actually get down to 7 by 12 kilometer.
Cute little 12-kilometer long.
Postage stamp. That's something closer to the size. Yes, it's still not too small. It's like Greater Pasadena, right? But I can't land on the corner of a lake in Colorado, but I can land somewhere in that general neighborhood. And I think that will be true with these systems too. But it's going to be a while, and so I'm not going to raise people's hopes that we've got it all our act together yet.
John, before we take a break and go back to Hedgehog Swing, actually, during that break, do you want to see people on Mars to pick up where these robots have left off?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I'd be lucky enough in my lifetime to have that happen. And the reason why is because I think with the rovers, what you do is you learn how to explore, and you get a sense for how Mars is different from Earth and how it's similar from Earth. But then after that, what you really want to do is, MSL's the right idea, but what you really want to do is set up a big lab. If you want to address this question, are we alone, and that leads you to the ancient rock record of Mars, you gotta have up there what we have on Earth. And we can return samples, and hopefully we'll learn some very general things about Mars that will teach us where to look specifically. But then once you're there, what Earth teaches us, a planet that we know has life, is that you have to look and look and look and process. And John Callis made this comment today about why Opportunity lasted as long as it did.
John Callis, the project manager for the Mars Exploration Rovers.
Right, and and Rob and Steve were talking a little bit about it tonight. At the end, being smart only gets you so far. At the end, you just have to get a little bit lucky. And so this is the legacy of understanding the record of early life on Earth. You just got to find that sweet spot, and you have to process enough rocks to get in the sweet spot, and then when you're there, you're still not done looking. And you have to process a lot of rock until you know that there was a microbe on Earth that lived 3.5 billion years ago. And that's the reason to send humans.
Jim, I hope you're going to stay with us through this short break. We're going to give people a chance to stretch their legs, although you may want to really kick up your heels more than stretch your legs, because we're going to hear another tune from our musical guest, Hedgehog Swing. You are listening to or watching Next, People's Science Tomorrow, in KPCC, Southern California Public Radio's Crawford Family Forum. And this is also Planetary Radio Live from SCPR's neighbor here in Pasadena, the Planetary Society. There is much more to come as we talk rovers on Mars. Guys, take it away. right, folks, we're going to pick right up here in a second, so please come back to your seats. It's not a full break. We're going to be back with the show as soon as they finish this tune. That's so cool. Oh, God. This could hurt you. That's Hedgehog Swing. Luca, Gage, Kale, and Benj. Welcome back to Planetary Radio Live. And next, I'm Matt Kaplan, and we are in KPCC, Southern California Public Radio's Crawford Family Forum, with the CEO of the Planetary Society, Bill Nye the Science Guy. On stage with us is John Grotzinger, project scientist for Curiosity, the Mars Science Laboratory rover, and Rob Manning, former chief engineer for Curiosity and current head of Mars Engineering for the Jet Propulsion Lab. Let's hear it for them, too. And then on Skype over there, joining in that round of applause, is author, astronomer, Mars Exploration Rover PanCam scientist, and president of the Planetary Society, Jim Bell. So, John, I wanted you also to talk a little bit about, and everybody else, I have heard something described as the holy grail of robotic exploration of Mars, and that is this idea of bringing a little bit of it back home. Would that kind of take the place of building this big lab with people there on the surface?
I don't think so. I think it's a necessary precursor, and Rob can tell you why engineering involved in sample return is critical for that. But scientifically, the problem is you can only return so much stuff. And then after that, it's in the lab, and you might be able to do brilliant experiments. But this issue of finding preserved organic matter is very heterogeneous kind of a expression in rocks. And I really think it is not luck that we find stuff on the early Earth. It's serendipitous. You have to know where to go.
Where's an example of that? Like Australia?
Yeah, like Western Australia. You know, you got rocks there that are 3.5 billion years old, and it's taken decades to really dig in there and be able to not just find something, but then go back and move 5 feet away and find it again and repeat the experiment and do it over again. And the whole time you're doing it, you're always wondering, is it contamination? Mm-hmm. What we're doing with Curiosity is so remarkably similar to it. And you know, we've got all these people that work on the mission that never studied Mars before, and they bring these skills in that give the cutting edge aspect to it. It's a tough problem. You don't just show up and find evidence of life on the early Earth.
Yeah. So John, are we driving too slow? Our rover's going 0.004 of a mile per hour.
I don't know,
is that
Rob,
not fast enough?
We have bigger wheels. How come we're not going faster?
Yeah. Hey, we should talk about that. We should talk about that. No, I actually, that's a very important question. I mean, you know, we've been talking about bringing a sample back for decades, right? So the question is, what? You know, in fact, for a long time, we were thinking, well, just bring any rock, just grab a rock, put it in, and send it home. I mean, we think about what we're talking about, bring samples back for this for the first sample return. We're talking about somewhere between 20 and 30 core samples. Cores, something about that long, about the
like
thinness
golf
of
pencils.
Yeah, really tiny pencils. Yeah, exactly, little one. And that's it. And that's it. So the hard part, I think you're telling us, is how do you find the good ones? We're not going to be able to drive to Australia. Do we need to be able to drive further and explore a wider region of Mars to be able to find get the serendipity we need?
I think this business of orbiters and rovers is critically important, and you cannot do it with just one of them. And so you get better at it, and the thing is we're going to get different tastes. So the reason the science team loved Gale so much is the mountain's awesome, and mountain climbing we knew would be something that would capture the public interest. But scientifically, we knew that we had 3-4 expressions of different kinds of geology, and we've only sampled one of them. And so we're booking it to try to get to the other ones. But the thing about curiosity that's very important for our team is that you got to drive and drill. I mean, drill, baby, drill. That's what we got to do here. But you don't want to just drill anything, because you only get to drill so many. And so you want to make sure it's the right rocks, and that's the reason why we can't stop and sniff the roses as much as we would like to about other stuff. And for the next Mars mission, when you're going to have to pick that landing site carefully and look for that great diversity like Gale has, and then return the greatest, my opinion anyway, most diverse suite of samples, because you don't know exactly what the recipe book is for success in finding these organics and
So
getting
what you're
beyond
saying is we need to send many core samplers and many Mars ascent vehicles to come back to Earth in a flotilla, an armada.
Rob,
Yes, an Earth orbit.
you got a problem with that, Rob?
Am I allowed to say at the Planetary Society, are going to, if you want to learn more about this, this sort of mission, check out planetary.org, because these guys, my father was quite the rock hound. I became a mechanical engineer. I mean, I'm human, but I'm a mechanical engineer, and these guys have been talking about bringing back pieces of Mars for decades, right? And it's a complicated thing. You have to land on the surface, you got to drill a hole, you got to get the thing in some vacuum chamber, fabulous airtight mobile thing. Then you got to go into Martian orbit. Then you got to put it on another spaceship and fly back to the Earth without screwing it up.
Right. Yeah. In fact, if you think about it, in fact, that's the next plan. We've got a rover that we've just started.
Yeah.
And in fact, 58 proposals for different science instruments just arrived. Just announced. None of us have seen them yet, but hopefully in the next few months.
Wait, one person has apparently.
That's one of them.
Which one, Jim?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, we'll hear about that.
We deleted that one, Jim. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Jim, before you tell us about that, you can push your proposal here that's now being considered by NASA. But you've been nodding continuously during this discussion of sample return. What do you have to say about it?
Well, look, I think what John has said is very sage advice. We shouldn't oversell our ability to discover evidence for life on a very complex planet, which by today's standards is extremely hostile and unforgiving to life on its surface. Ultraviolet radiation, low atmospheric pressure, low temperatures, etc. So so we do have to be careful that we don't sell this as we're going to go discover life with this new rover. But guys, quit your whining, okay? We have the capability to lead and to be the first people to try. Right, to give it what we're doing with Curiosity right now is amazing. It just constantly thrills and delights me that there is a laboratory on board that rover, that every time it sniffs the air, sniffs the ground, and ingests a little bit of drill sample, whatever, every single time it could make a measurement that would, Bill, dare you say it?
Change the world.
Change the world. That's right. It could do that, and we built it and we sent it. And maybe it's low odds, but we're giving it our absolute best shot. We're going to the places that we think are the best places to go. And we'll do the same with the Mars 2020 mission. We're about to embark, the whole community, John, myself, hundreds of other people are about to start this landing site selection process for that rover. And where will we go? Where will we send it? I'll bet you if 150 people show up to the first meeting, John, there's going to be 150 different landing sites proposed the first time, right? So
149 because I'm sitting on the sidelines for this one.
All right. Well, but
I'll bring two.
Really diverse and interesting place, and we're going to have to figure out where to go to maximize our chances to make those incredible discoveries. And I'm really proud of our space agency and my fellow taxpayers, and that the fact that we're willing to invest just a tiny fraction of our immense national wealth to take this chance to try to discover, are we alone?
All right, so Jim, you're one of those, or you represent a team that is one of those 58 that would love to be on that 2020 rover, which is going to look a lot like Curiosity. Not everybody's going to make it. I mean, how many instruments can make it? I mean, this is kind of a crapshoot, isn't it?
Right. I mean, they're very cost constrained. The whole idea, Rob could tell you more, is use a lot of spare parts. And probably that wheel in front of them is probably going to Mars someday. And use a lot of spare parts, use the skills and capabilities of this amazing vehicle Curiosity and its landing system to save money, don't have to redesign everything from scratch. But still, there's only going to be a small fraction of the total budget available for the science payload. So, Curiosity has, what, John, 10, 11 instruments, investigations on it. How many will we be able to get on 2020? 5, 6, 8, 10? It's some small number compared to 58.
What would you do differently in 2020? What instrument would you like to have?
Great question.
Well, first of all, one of the things it's going to do is cache those samples, right? So Curiosity can't do that. So we'll be able to core into the surface, collect those samples, those golf pencils, Bill, put them in this little container, leave that container on the rover or somewhere on the surface where we can go get it someday, hopefully in the 2020s. So that's one thing. And then, there's a whole bunch of advances that have been made in the technology of cameras, of spectrometers, of, organic sensing instruments. And all of those have come out of the woodwork among those 58 proposals, I'm sure, are just some amazing technological wonders for making even better, higher fidelity measurements of the surface. I personally want to send zoom cameras. I want to be able to zoom into the surface at high resolution and take much better stereo data than we've been able to do with Curiosity. But lots of people have all kinds of different ideas for the kinds of instruments that we can send to pick those best samples, because that's the focus of the mission. Pick the best samples, get them in the box, get that box ready, and then, hey, let's go get that box.
Let me ask everybody this thing. Isn't there ice on Mars? Water ice, under some dust. Couldn't we go there and sample that or something? Because a lot of living things that I've spent time with are wet.
At high latitudes, just like in the polar regions on the Earth, there's ice, right? The problem is, and Rob will tell you this, the problem is you got to heat the spacecraft to survive up there. And it gets super, super cold, and you end up spending all of the battery power, all of the nuclear jetpack, all of that energy is just heating, and you don't have any left to actually run the mission. So that's why we're kind of restricted to the equatorial latitudes.
But now and then you get Phoenix, which didn't move this way, but did move this way.
That's right.
And lasted until basically it was encased in ice, right? Well, not quite that long, Rob.
Right. That's right. Phoenix was fantastic because we had predicted that whole northern and southern part of Mars would have a lot of hydrogen. And we don't know what kind of hydrogen? H2O. And we saw from orbit that there was a lot of hydrogen. And sure enough, we landed Phoenix, and there, just inches below the surface, was this ice, literally blue ice, just underneath the soil. I mean, it was fantastic. But one of the challenges I have with, say, for example, if MSL landed there, Jim's absolutely right. The amount of heat energy we would need to operate the vehicle and keep it going, let alone just to drive, it would be prohibitive to keep it.
We need more power.
We need more power. The irony of the whole thing is that hot RTG in the back would actually melt the ice, and the rover would start to sag backwards. And pretty soon, the back of the rover, unless you kept driving, the rover would sink into the ice below it. But because it really does it leaves a kind of a warm trail behind.
Was there a place in between? This is what the casual.
Yeah, there is.
The mulling guy out loud thinkingizing.
There's actually an interesting irony here is that we have actually rules that says that we can't land MSL on ice.
It has to be sterile.
Because MSL, although it's extraordinarily clean, we do not have a means to, actually modern technology, it's very hard to actually sterilize like it was done in the 1970s with the 2 Viking landers. We put them in ovens. We actually built a whole lander, shoved it in an oven, close it up, 125 degrees for 24 hours.
Centigrade.
Centigrade, 124 centigrade. Pretty toasty. And that's, but you do that now, a lot of our equipment would not do so well. So our MSL is not cooked. And it's because of that, we have rules that says we can't land this vehicle on top of ice. We can, well, that's it. We have to go to places without ice.
Bill, when
So we
find
need
a
more
bubbling-
funding.
When we find a bubbling spring at Gale, we have instructions to drive away from it.
But is there a place, is there an outcropping in some valley that I'm going to rappel down, or gully rather, I'm going to rappel down, and this super salty, slushy water will be oozing out, and there will be my Martian microbes?
Well, we could design vehicles to do that and learn how to cook them and make that solve that
So
problem.
what Rob would do would be land us nearby in a safe place, and then we all hop in our rover, which we've carried along and stuffed somehow into that volume that Rob got down to the surface, and we drive over to the cool place, Bill, with our ropes and rappel down those crater slopes and look at the groundwater. That's what we'd have to do.
In fact, we actually are developing a wall climbing rover that would actually deploy off a bigger rover with the cables and just low down and says, "How you doing down there?" Fine. Down the wall it goes.
Cool.
And
There's a cool mission concept called Cryobot, which lands on the ice and then just melts its way through.
melts it right through. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like what everybody would love to send to Europa if we landed on the
That's
surface,
exactly right. Yes.
We are just a few minutes away now, folks, from opening this up to all of you out there for the Q&A portion of this discussion. So do start to think about your questions for Jim Bell, John Grotzinger, Rob Manning. And John, we've already talked about the orbiters, but if you could say a little bit more about this partnership between those spacecraft high overhead and how essential they are, not just to the science, but Rob, you'll want to get in on this, to letting us talk to the rovers down on the planet.
Oh yeah, with the camera team that Jim's associated with, we have even greater data volumes, and the cameras store a lot of data, and if we want to look at those images, we need to send them down with a high data volume. So it's essential not just for communication on a daily basis to tell the rover what to do, but once it's collected all this data, we got to get it back. And what's happening is our appetite for these spectacular images, and the camera Jim wants to build now with zoom lenses where you could actually make movies in stereo. And we really need the orbiters in the future just for that relay, that data relay alone. It's very, our appetites increase and the data is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, most people don't know that most of our data comes back through the orbiters. We have a fairly small antenna, a walkie-talkie, if you will. As the orbiters go overhead, we can shove the information, lots of information, over a course of 10 minutes as the orbiter flies overhead.
There's that little tiny antenna right next to you there, that scale model.
Yeah.
There
we have this little tiny pencil thing on the end of the top of this rover on Curiosity allows us to get almost all of our data back, and we have a little bit bigger antenna on Curiosity. This antenna right here, and MSL has one, Curiosity has one too, allows us to go direct to Earth. But this thing doesn't allow us to get any more than an old 1200 baud modem. It's very, very slow. You can't get these pictures back. So we're counting on these orbiters with huge antennas. I mean, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has an antenna as large as this whole stage that can aim all those bits, ones and zeros, to aim back to Earth, going that vast 200 million mile flight of ones and zeros back to Earth. If our rover had to do that without the orbiter, we would have an antenna as big as the rover.
Bill, I happen to know that you just sent a message to the moon and back by laser.
Yeah, check me out. I had almost nothing to do with it. No, it was, what do we all want? What is, everybody's competing to either you want cable television or fiber optic television. And so there's an old expression, DC to daylight. When you're able to send information not just at the speed of light, but at the frequency of light. Then you can get a lot more information. And so these guys at MIT, mostly, sent a laser message to the moon, to the Laddie spacecraft, and that rebroadcast it back to Earth. So, you know, a radio signal, like those of you listening right now, on frequency modulated FM radio, the radio signal might be a couple human body lengths, might be a quarter of a wavelength, might be a meter, like fingertips to fingertips with your arms spread out. Well, AM radio is a kilometer long. It's a better part of a mile long, but optical wavelengths, visible light, are billionths of a meter, tenths of microns long. And so this is this is the future. It very well may be, certainly in the next 20 years, but maybe even in the next 10 years, we'll beam lasers to and from Mars and get this bit rate, your data rate, way up.
Yeah, we definitely need that. I mean, if we're going to do the kinds of things that Jim wants to do, pairs
Not
of
just Jim.
color.
What about me, man?
You, okay, you. You know, high rate video, HD video from Mars, or
How cool would that be?
how's that cool? That right now we do that, and you remember it takes us months to get those kind of data back right now.
Something
So-
that just is always fascinating, and I know all three of you guys have seen this, and Emily, this dust devils on Mars, whirlpools of wind, tornadoes on Mars.
And thank heaven for them, at least for the Mars exploration rovers, cleaning off those
dusted
solar
the panels
Yeah.
one night, yeah. But what an extraordinary thing if we could see that in real time. John, you talk about the dumb luck or the discoveries you don't anticipate. You got to figure if you could see real video, you would notice patterns, you would notice connections from one thing to another that you right now literally can't imagine.
Yeah, just sitting there, you know, I sort of imagine what would happen if you had an incredible zoom lens and stereo, and you had the data coming back as a continuous stream. You'd be able to select the targets that you approach so much more effectively. You know, it'd be a great asset. Yeah. And that again is, you know, that's a reason to send humans, because right now, you know, somebody walking around on a rock can just absorb so much more information than a robot can.
Jim, many people know you as a nature photographer on Mars. Do you want to be a filmmaker on Mars?
Well, that would be very cool. I would love to have high-speed internet from Mars. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. Sick and tired of dial-up, right? You know. But John's absolutely right. And actually, we don't really need video. It would be.
Hilarious irony.
We don't need video.
Dr. Bell,
Was that cosmic?
Just
Apparently, the provider was, Jim, we lost you just as you said we don't need video, but you're back.
froze. It was a hilarious nerd comedy moment.
But, so I think the next step is what, you know, this laser comm, and just the ability, like John was saying, to be more perceptive. You know, when a geologist is out in the field, or you take your students out, we don't realize we're constantly scanning. You know, we're constantly getting 180s and 360s around us. But when we're driving along with Spirit, Opportunity, or Curiosity, we're driving like this a lot. You know, maybe if we're lucky, it's like this, you know. And I don't know how many dinosaur bones we've probably driven right past, you know, because we just don't take pictures of them. But so the ability to see 180, 360 with just, you know, flat imaging, not even video, that'll be the next big step up. And then we can start talking about, you know, real-time video and real interaction with the environment. So that would be cool.
We are running out of time, I'm afraid. I do want to mention, before we start taking a few questions, very few from our studio audience here at the Crawford Family Forum, that there are some people who've learned how to make pretty decent-looking little movies from Mars and elsewhere in the solar system, and a great place to find those is the blog belonging to Emily Lakdawala, who started our show tonight. She puts those kinds of things together, but her blog, our blogs at planetary.org, have become a real gathering place for a largely amateur community that has done the most amazing things with images. And I wish we had time to talk about how the amateur community has contributed to all of this research.
Huge.
Yeah.
Very, very.
Let us see if somebody out there has a question that you'd like to throw at our guests up here. There's somebody way down in the front here with his hand up, and we'll just give it a second here for the microphone to arrive. And then, sir, we'll ask you to introduce yourself and let us know your question.
I'm the not-so-famous James Brown.
Love your music.
I'm a retired aerospace engineer, and I spent a lot of time working on great airplanes. One of the problems that I often saw in the space community is lack of funding. Now we live in very difficult times. How does that impact you guys with this, what was it called, that special program where they're cutting down all the spending, 10% off the budget? Just a thought.
How did you know that that was a question I wanted to get in before we finished?
Well, this is, if you want to learn more, is that accurate, Matt? If you want to learn more.
Yeah, no call to action. Be careful.
Yeah, you have an opportunity to go to the Planetary Society website. What am I allowed to say? We have great interest in funding for space science, especially planetary science. And I will say this is not an extraordinary thing. We spend a little less than the United States, where we are right now, spends a little less than $1.5 billion on planetary science. The NASA budget is close to $18 billion. So then people have a perception that the NASA, you'll meet people that say, oh, the NASA budget's 10% of the government, U.S. federal budget. It's about 0.4%. So we could just do extraordinary things with just a little tweaking to the line items within the NASA budget, let alone if we were to adjust things in a bigger way. That is to say, make the NASA budget bigger. And the reason you would do this, even if you are a taxpayer and voter that hates space, and you hate phones, and you hate global positioning systems, and you hate the internet, and you just kind of hate everything. Even for you, the astonishing benefit you get from space exploration, especially planetary science exploration, planetary science in space exploration is amazing. You would not have the internet. You would not have global positioning systems. You would not have smartphones. You would not, for many, many of the billions of people in the world, have food without the planetary science program. It just has led to innovations because this is where guys like Dr. Bell, Dr. Grosser, Rob Manning, this is where guys, where people solve problems that have never been solved before. This is where the innovations come from. So we did not plant you, James Brown, but thank you.
Yes, thank you. You know, Steve Squires shocked me today when he was asked in that press conference, how much does it cost on an annual basis now to keep Opportunity running? $14 million a year. That's nothing. That's chicken feed. To think that
nice
could
chickens,
go away, yeah. Talk about return on investment, and that's happening all around the solar system. We better jump on to. Sorry, Jim.
It's nothing, Matt, on the scale of what the government does, but it's hugely important for all of these programs, and all of us who do this work. We work really hard to make sure that it's of value for the American taxpayer. We work hard to make sure we're communicating our results and making educational, programs for teachers and students and interacting with the public and, getting the data out there, trying to bring people into it and realize this is an amazing value for, for less than kind of your Starbucks fix that, you can participate in space exploration directly. And that's exciting.
Let's get to at least one more question here before we have to say goodbye to our guests and get on to our last segment of the show. And we are going to hear one more time from Hedgehog Swing. Are there any other questions out there?
Matt, back here.
I can just, right back there. Hi, sir. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Stephen Wood. I recently completed an Air and Space Law Master's of Law in Leiden University, interning at X-Corps.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And while in the Netherlands, I came across this organization called Mars One, and we are also very aware of Dennis Tito's Inspiration Mars program, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on these new private endeavors to reach Mars.
Who wants? Bill, you go first.
Well, okay, but Mars One. Look, we are in California. We do not have the polar vortex here. Do you know the motto of the state of California? It's Eureka. I found it. So these European settlers came over the hill. Here's the Sacramento River. Fish, salmon this big are jumping in their laps. Olives and oranges are growing like weeds. Grapes are everywhere. And so they go, hey, we're going to hang out. In fact, the rocks literally have gold in them. Literally, the ground is made of gold. Well, I mean, look, I want to go to Mars as much as the next guy, maybe more. But it's not going to be like that. You're not going to, there's not any water. That's okay. There's nothing to breathe, man. So I say to these people, go to Antarctica for a year or two and see what you think. And don't go, no, not where the shore, where the ice is and the birds are jumping around. No, you go to the dry valley. It hasn't snowed in a century. And on a summer day, it's 40 below. And then see if you think that's really what you're after. With that said, we've got to go to Mars and walk around.
Jim, do you want to get in on that?
Well, look, it is the frontier. Bill's right. It is the frontier. And, you know, Americans and other people from other countries have the frontier spirit. And so, you know, people will go. And I don't know whether NASA will be the first organization that sends people to Mars or not. There are, you know, private companies that can launch rockets now and private investing and all that. And so I think that, you know, the specific groups you talked about, it's a little premature. They don't have the technology. They don't have the funding yet. There's a lot of, you know, interest. There's a lot of very sincere people who really want to, you know, be that vanguard of humanity on another world. It has to happen, right? We have to get off this planet, right? I mean, it's just a matter of time. And so that's going to happen. And I think, you know, at the Planetary Society, we support that kind of spirit. But I think we all want to see some real pragmatism to it and try to advance those goals, those noble aims in kind of, you know, reasonable, technologically possible ways.
And while we're at it, let's congratulate China for its recent success on the moon, China 3, and the Jade Rabbit rover. So I wouldn't mind a little renewed space race myself, frankly. Rob, do you want to get in on this? Are you do your name in for Mars 1?
I think not Mars 1. The Inspiration Mars makes a little bit more sense. I mean, it's
the round trip.
It's the round trip. They're looking for a couple of I think retirees age to go out and go all the way out to Mars in a free return orbit.
A married couple.
Yeah, married couple going around Mars and then coming back.
Have you talked to Dominique about this?
I haven't mentioned that yet. Come on. It's not that long.
Yeah, my wife has already said no way. So.
Yeah. So over a little over a year, I believe, but you full trip. Then you come right back and you slam back into Earth. It could be a little boring. The idea is they're bringing lots of DVDs and on flashcards, so lightweight. No, I think this. I think in any the emphasis on in private exploration is a very good thing. I like the possibilities are there if the money's there. The trouble is all about cost and how much it takes to get people there. It's a lot of money. It takes a lot of money. Even just getting them off around Mars without even landing is a big deal financially. So we'll have to see how this goes. This is a brave new world, and there are people who may think of a way to do it. And far be it from me to say that they can't. I think they should at least give it a try.
John?
You know, my own thought about that is if these guys want to do it, awesome. You know, they've earned their money. They can do what they want with it. And I kind of like the idea I like is trying to figure out how to get to Titan. And, you know, there's a great mission concept that involves landing on one of the lakes. And
this is on the moon of Saturn.
Right.
Yeah.
And all you need is a sailboat. So, you know, it just so happens the CEO of Oracle is, you know, $40 billion. Cut loose 10% of that, and you're there.
He could sell one
Oracle
yacht
on the sailboat, you know. I mean, you know, we can do that.
It's amazing. I mean, you know, Titan, the only other place we know of in the solar system with running liquid. It's liquid methane and ethane, not water, but still.
Organics.
Yeah. I would hate to stop at 2 questions. If we can get one more very quick question and some very quick answers, and then we'll really have to finish this segment. Way in the back there. Hi, sir.
Hello, I'm Jack Anderson with Los Angeles Solar System Project. I'm going to go along the same lines with the exploration and try and get a historical reference in the idea that we explored the oceans, we explored the poles, we went under the water for the first time, we went up Mount Everest, and these guys were as prepared as they could be, but they knew they were taking their lives into their hands. Do you think that we're erring a little bit too much on the side of caution rather than on the side of discovery?
Let's go the other way this time. John, very briefly.
I guess I'll just repeat what I said before. It's their money, it's their life, and if they want to push the envelope, that's what Red Bull's all about. They should go for it.
My thing is that I'm okay about the risk-taking thing, but if you're going to land on Mars, there's a big difference between landing at 10 miles an hour and 1,000 miles an hour. The amount of money you need to spend to get roughly in the order so you don't die is actually rather high, and that's sort of the challenge here. And so, but if they can think of a way to do it, I'm all for it.
The atmosphere is too thin to help you, but too thick to ignore.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the other thing, everybody, we watch science fiction, and everybody's going around, but Mars is just an extraordinarily long way away. It's not perfectly analogous to getting to the moon. It's a much harder deal. With that said, it's worth doing.
Yeah, that's why I say, Matt, that it may not be NASA that does this, right? Because, I love my National Space Agency. I'm a huge fan of NASA, but one of its problems is it's becoming incredibly risk averse, and to the point of, stagnation and not doing things that are bold and exciting as it used to. They're still bold and exciting things.
I'm not sure you should say that, Jim.
Well, look, I think it's true. But these private companies and individuals, just like Shackleton and et cetera, they can take those risks. They've decided to accept that risk, and maybe they'll be the first pioneers there. It won't be a NASA astronaut. It'll be a private astronaut.
Yeah, it's kind of the nature of exploration, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim, you got the last word there, because we are beyond out of time for this portion of the conversation. But we're not done. So please, those of you here with us, stay in your seats and enjoy another number in a moment or two from Hedgehog Swing as we bring Bruce Betts up here and try to give some stuff away for the audience. And for those of you at home, you can join the Planetary Radio contest that we do every week. And Bruce will be introducing that in just a moment. For now, though, please help me thank our panel of scientists, engineers, and explorers, Jim Bell, John Grotzinger, and Rob Manning. And Bill, I wish you could have seen all the faces and stuff that Jim was doing behind your back as you were looking this way. But after all, he's your boss. He's the president of the Planetary Society. I will see you at the office, Bill, and we'll be talking again, as we do every week, on Planetary Radio during your segment.
Looking forward. Carry on. Let's get Dr. Betts up here, and let's hear from, can I say, the band?
Bill Nye, the CEO of the Planetary Society and the Science Guy. Gentlemen, Hedgehog Swing, take it away. No, I have shade my eyes. We have the last extra large and the last large in here, and then there are like 4 mediums. Gotta order more shirts. That's true, we do. Not with me, but yeah, we do. Get some of those back. I would say at least a couple of shirts. Yeah, 2 shirts and these 2 things. How's that? Hedgehog swing. All right. We have finished Planetary Radio the same way every week for more than 11 years by spending a few minutes with my friend, astronomer, planetary scientist, and the Planetary Society Director of Projects, Bruce Betts. Hi, Bruce.
Hello.
You're remarkably chipper for a guy who's been sick as a dog.
By the way, thanks for mentioning that. I had both Rob Manning and John Grotzinger dive away from me. You mentioned me coming out of my sick bed.
Really, we need a planetary protection officer to protect us from you, I think. All right, so
we usually do.
Tell us about the night sky.
All right. Well, it's a fun time right now because all 5 planets that you can see with the unaided eye are actually visible right now. Of course, you'll have to stay up all night to do it, but that's workable. So in the evening sky, if you look low in the west, you can actually catch Mercury for the next week to 2 weeks. And in the east, shining super bright, we've got Jupiter looking quite stunning and lovely. And in the middle of the night, we've got Mars coming up, looking reddish as always in the east, and then Saturn coming up a couple hours later, and in the east, in the pre-dawn, very low, coming up super bright Venus. So you can just track them all through the night.
A lot to look at.
Good times. We move on to this week in space history. And it is the week of remembrance for the U.S. space program. Every astronaut in the U.S. space program who died related to a spacecraft accident died this week. And that includes the Apollo 1 fire and the Challenger accident and the Columbia accident. All occurred during this week, spread out throughout the ages.
Exploring is not always a safe activity.
On the good side, we've got in 1958, Explorer 1 was launched by JPL, becoming the first successful American orbiting spacecraft. So we move on, and now I'd like the audience's help. So if you've been here before, you know we ask you to yell out, "Random Space Fact!" And so I'm going to do one practice session. 1, 2, 3.
Random Space Fact!
Wow. Brilliant. All right. Could have been the real take, but let's take one more. All right. Now, from our audience, I'd like to hear...
Random Space Facts!
That was great. I gave you a terrible cue, and you made it work. My bad. So, Random space fact, 10 years ago, when Opportunity landed, as well as when Spirit landed, they carried mini DVDs made of silica glass provided by the Planetary Society that each carried 4 million names of people who wanted to send their names to the surface of Mars through a names collection with NASA and Lego. Also include simulated Lego bricks and simulated Lego minifigure astrobots who told their stories on Mars for a while. You want to learn more about this, learn about Opportunity, Spirit. I don't know if you mentioned, we have our website, planetary.org/rover party. You can celebrate the 10-year anniversary with all sorts of good videos from Bill, from me, from others, as well as background information, games, festivities. It's a party.
Would you also, before we go on, say something about this opportunity for people to put their name, send their name to an asteroid?
How appropriate. It ties right in, doesn't it? Yes, well, we're collaborating with the NASA OSIRIS-REx asteroid sample return mission. And if you go to planetary.org/Bennu, BENNU, which is the name of the asteroid they'll visit, named through a naming contest we ran, you can enter your name. We're over 200,000 names after a little over a week of names collections for people wanting to fly their names. You'll go out, you'll come back in the sample return capsule. You'll also stay on the carrier spacecraft that will stay in space pretty much indefinitely. So check that out.
And I already have my beautiful certificate signed by the science guy, and you can get yours. Anyway, that's enough of a commercial, I think. We're going to go on to the contest. Now, we don't have the winner of the contest that we put up 2 weeks ago, but you can still tell people the question and tell them the answer.
Okay. I asked you out there in Radio Land, what Northern Hemisphere constellation is often likened to the shape of a W? The letter W or letter M, depending on time of year, time of night. And the answer I was looking for, you can probably find various star collections that look that way, but the most commonly referred to is Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia, off in the north. Round of applause for Cassiopeia.
Fan out there, yeah. Why not? And we'll have the name of that winner. I will have the name right after we do this segment. We'll be able to add that to
Through Radio Magic?
Yes. It's all magic.
Matt does Radio Magic. I love it. All right, let us go on to, we're going to do the new trivia question for the radio audience. Also can include you, but don't shout out your answers now. Go to where I tell you the website to go to give the entry, and then we'll do some in-audience questions. So first, for next time, tell us the 3 rovers that have roved the farthest on bodies other than Earth. The 3 rovers in history that have gone the farthest in their roving on bodies other than Earth. Go to planetary.org/radio contest.
Well done. You scared me for a moment. And you've got until Monday, February 3rd. That's Monday the 3rd at 2 p.m. Pacific time to get us that answer. And you may win yourself a Planetary Radio t-shirt. But there are folks in here tonight who are also about to get that opportunity. And we have some other very special items brought to us by our friend Doug Ellison from JPL, who has been out in the lobby showing off things like these wonderful wheels. Oh, they took away my Sojourner wheel, the one that could hurt you. It's sitting over there now.
Hiding over there.
You know what Doug pointed out? Each successive rover had a wheel that was exactly twice as large as the one before.
That's because they don't have calculators at JPL.
It was so much simpler to figure out. Okay, let's do this thing.
All right,
for the
let's
folks here.
start with some easy ones. I'll ask questions. Please raise your hand, wait for a microphone to get to you, and then give the answer. We will start with a Planetary Radio t-shirt. And because that, I'm familiar with trying to throw and not hurt people. I'm less clear how I'm going to throw these and not hurt people. But so, name 4 Mars Rovers.
Hands, please. Don't shout it out. There's a hand up here.
Let me be clear. These are rovers that have actually roved on Mars.
Hi, sir. What's your name?
My name's James Creeley, and I'm a PhD student at Fuller.
Cool.
Oh, great.
Name those rovers.
Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, and Curiosity.
Excellent. Well done.
Bravo.
throw a shirt. We have some options for size exchange, but we'll start with on top.
Oh, he hits
I just hit your mother. I'm sorry. Oh, God, Matt's never going to forgive me. I'm sorry.
You'll be hearing from our attorneys. It's hungadunga, 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 and hungadunga. Okay.
I don't think I could go on. All right. Please, someone from elsewhere in the audience. How many wheels did each rover have? How many wheels did each rover have?
Where are we going next? Here we are. Hi, what's your name?
Kirsten Seebach.
And how many wheels?
6.
Indeed, 6 wheels with the JPL rocker bogie design.
Excellent.
Duck,
everyone. Oh my gosh.
I panicked. Thank you.
High and outside. Okay.
All
no
right.
need for legal assistance on that one.
All right. Now one near and dear to our Planetary Society CEO, as well as our Planetary Society president. The calibration target for the cameras on the last 3 rovers also was noted by a certain Bill Nye to look like something else, which led to a whole program of education of students from around the world coming in a Planetary Society program to do something with them. What do the calibration targets for the cameras also look like?
And
besides
function
calibration
as.
targets.
And function as.
And we will
right
give
here.
away this, but I won't throw it.
Sundial.
Yes, sundial. Those are the Mars styles.
And you won yourself a beautiful set of pictures. No, we'll get it to you later. You don't need to get it. No, we promise. We won't give it to anybody else. These pictures from the Mars Exploration Rover mission. We have one more, which Doug Ellison tells me is a very rare item. They were fighting for this at the recent American Geophysical Union show. And let's see who's going to get this one.
Name the lander on Mars after Opportunity. What landed next?
And we did mention it during the show this evening. Somebody way over here. Someone here too? Hi.
Stand up.
Hi there. What's your name?
I'm Zan Sun. Was it the Phoenix lander?
That is correct. The Phoenix lander.
All right.
You can get this from Matt after the show because you can trust this man. This wonderful man and his wonderful family who don't believe in lawsuits.
I should have said you'll hear from our law firm of Howard and Fine. So there it is, the NASA Science 2014 calendar, and has just been one over there. I think we're done.
All right, everybody, go out there, look up the night sky, and think about what size tires you'd put on a rover on Mars. Thank you, and good night.
Just get the steel-belted ones. Now, we're not done, because we're going to... Please don't leave. God, what are you guys, Dodger fans? He's Bruce Betts, the Planetary Society's Director of Projects, and he joins me every week here for What's Up. That is it for this special edition of Planetary Radio Live. And next, People Science Tomorrow. I'll be back next week with another episode of Planetary Radio with this guy, with Bill Nye and with Emily Lakdawalla and some other great folks. Listen to KPCC and keep an eye on scpr.org for the announcement of our next event right here in the Crawford Family Forum. Playing us out this evening, once again, is Hedgehog Swing. You can learn more about them, including where you can catch these outstanding musicians. You can find them on their Facebook page. Just look for Hedgehog Swing. Thanks to all of our guests and to all of you who joined us for this celebration of exploration. Keep exploring, gentlemen, please.
Planetary Radio is produced by the Planetary Society of Pasadena, California, and made possible by the members of the Planetary Society. Next, People Science Tomorrow is a production of KPCC Southern California Public Radio. We thank the staff and management of SCPR's Crawford Family Forum, including John Cohn, Janice Wachi-Hurst, David McKeever, Jason Georges, Valentino Rivera, and Jenny Smith. I'm Claire Kaplan. Good night and clear skies.